Thank you so much, dear distinguished guests, or rather, let's say, dear PISA family here. We will have 4 presentations that are related to how PISA data can be used for policymaking, and we will have 4 case studies from countries that utilized PISA data in a different way. We will start from the case study from Portugal, presented by João Marocco. Then we will move to presentation from Latvia by Ilze Selenice. Then we will have a presentation from Slovenia by Yanis Vogrinc. And then we will move to the last but not least, our PISA champion, which is Estonia, by Maja Katzing. So, dear João, the floor is yours. Please show us how PISA data was used to shape policymaking in Portugal.
Thank you, Thomas. I will try to do my best. Can we have the slides, please? I need the slides. Oh, okay. Well, I can start by doing the introduction. Let me first thank you, OECD, for the opportunity to bring you some research I've been doing for some time. I used to sit on the place where most of you are, and I think I found that analyzing the data is much more fun than to collect it. So I'm really pleased to present you some stuff I've been doing. So from trailing in the PISA rankings to surpassing the OECD average in 2015, Portugal stood out as the sole OECD nation to consistently enhance its PISA performance over the first 15 years. However, since 2015, Portugal has witnessed a decline in PISA scores, mirroring the trend across the OECD that, as probably you know, has been going down for a while. So in this presentation, I will try to address the challenge of effectively leveraging international assessments like PISA to inform education policies and practices. I will examine how Portugal utilized PISA results to shape its education policies over a significant period and analyze the outcomes and challenge associated with this approach. Additionally, I will try to convey information on the implications of policy decisions on the evolution of the Portuguese education system, shedding light on the complexities and nuances of implementing reforms based on international assessments. Yeah, I forgot that I have a slide controller here. So let me start with a disclaimer saying that PISA, as you know, is a correlational study. And as I try to teach my first semester students in statistics, correlation does not imply causation. However, where there is smoke, generally there is fire. So take these results as you wish. The other thing that I would like to recall your attention is that there is a lag between policy implementation and student results. So for those of you that are trying to get some recommendations to your own governing boards, remember that policy comes first and then results, if everything goes okay, will come after. So let me start by showing you, well, I'm going to skip this slide. Everybody knows what PISA measures, right? I'm just going to show you that there is a very strong correlation between these 3 domains, science literacy, reading, and maths. It's 0.95. It's going to show up. I don't know where to point that direction or, oh, there it is. Okay. So there is a very strong correlation, 0.95, and that justifies the approach that I use to analyze this type of data. I'm not going to look at math or reading or science literacy. I'm going to look at something I call PISA literacy. That is just the average of the scores of the 3 domains. And if you are interested on the psychometric properties of these analysis, then I probably in the break or in the evening, I can explain in more detail what I'm doing. So the Portuguese story actually starts in 2000. And yeah, I don't know if you can see Portugal in the map over there. But back then, the average scores for the 3 domains in Portugal was 460 points. That is 40 points below the OECD average, almost 2 school years on OECD measurement scales. Portugal was ranking on the bottom of the league. actually, yeah, there it is, on the fourth position from the bottom. And by 2015, only 15 years after, Portugal has actually reached the OECD average in mathematics and a little bit above in reading and science. So in 15 years, the Portuguese students rose to the OECD average, an increase of about 40 points. Again, we were able, not we, our students were able to recover the lag as compared to the OECD students on average. So there it is, Portugal on the middle of the rank table in 15 years. And this, probably you know this gentleman, Angel Gurria, the former OECD Secretary General. He decided to praise Portugal on the PISA 2019 report. You can read it, I can read it also. He said, only 7 of the 79 education systems analyzed in PISA 2018 saw significant improvement in the reading, mathematics, and science performance of their students throughout the participation in PISA. And only one of these, Portugal, is a member of the OECD. So yeah, we were quite happy with the results. And I was trying to understand what, I'm trying to move the slides. I don't get along with this. There we go. Yeah, so I was trying to understand what explained this evolution of the Portuguese system. And as a researcher, and actually also as a data collector back in 2015, my major concern was, is PISA a valid measure of the Portuguese students' literacy? The colleague that was presenting early in the afternoon, talking about the Netherlands, he said that, oh, you know, if I understand it correctly, if I didn't, please correct me. He said that actually our national assessments show better results than what the students do in PISA. So yes, I've been there. I understand that that questioning. So I decided to look at the PISA test, the information curve. It's the top panel. Well, yeah, I can use the pointer here, and you won't listen to me. So this is the test information curve for PISA. You see that, you know, it's centered around 500 points. Everybody also have seen this before, with a standard deviation of 100 points. And these are actually the results for the first plausible value in mathematics for the Portuguese students. Okay, so you see the histogram, the distribution of the data, and you see that the histogram is quite well aligned with the PISA test information curve. And if you look at the number of items and the difficulty of items, you see that most of the items are here around the 500 points, and that's actually where our students are performing. So this tells me that the PISA test is well aligned with what the students, the Portuguese students know and can do with what they know in reading, maths, and science. So the test is not too hard or too easy for our students, and we are well aligned with what is expected for a student all over the world to doing the PISA test. Then I also looked at concurrent validity between the PISA content domains and the national mathematics exam for grade 9 up to 2015. Well, we still have, but we have a national exam for grade 9 for mathematics and Portuguese language. So in that year, I was able to compare the percentage of items both in the PISA test as well as the national exam for grade 9. About 60% of our students are on grade 10. So they took the exam the year before PISA in 2014. And you see that there is a nice overlap in the content domains, both for the PISA items and the national exam. The same thing with the cognitive domains. However, the PISA test does not have items for knowing. We do have a lot of those items in our national exams. As probably you know, PISA focus on formulating, applying, and interpreting. We don't have, or we didn't have any formulating items in the national exam in 2014, but we did have a lot of formulating, applying, and interpreting and reasoning. And I actually went and looked at the correlations between the first plausible value in mathematics and the grade 9 national exams for the students who took the PISA test. So what I did is just a simple correlational analysis. What I did was just to transform the national grades that go from 1 to 5 in PISA scores, and then correlate the two data sets, and the correlation is 0.64. I don't know, how do you feel about a 0.64 correlation? Of course, in statistics, everything is relative. Let me just tell you that the correlation between the grade 9 national exam for mathematics and the internal grades that the teachers assign to the students by the end of the school year is 0.62. So I think this shows that PISA is well aligned and is measuring quite well what our students can do and in the mathematics test. And if you do the same thing for Portuguese, you get a pretty much same correlation. And I also did it for teams, grade 4. And you also see a very nice correlation between the results of these international large-scale assessments and the results of the national exams. So I'm pretty much convinced and relieved that PISA and also teams is showing quite well what our students can do. So by the participation, by the 2022 participation of Portugal, we are still aligned with the OECD, but as I told you before, now we are going down with the OECD. So I'm not sure if this is a good result, being aligned with OECD or not. We can discuss that. So what explains these results for the Portuguese education system? My objective here is pretty much look at how the policies were implemented in response to PISA results. All the ministries of education that performed these policy changes, they were looking at PISA and also teams and pearls, not as much, but mainly PISA and teams. And ultimately, the goal was to glean insights into the relationship between the policies, decisions, educational outcomes, and PISA, with the aim of informing future policy developments and educational practices. So bear with me, because I will try to summarize 20 years of policy changes in 2 minutes. We can discuss these over dinner. So this is just my scale of PISA literacy. Remember, it's just the average of the 3 domains. And we start in 2000 with the first application of the PISA scale. I think you can see the bars here. So this just means political color. I'm not going to tell you which one is rose and the other one is orange, but it just means it's different political parties in charge of the government. And back in 2000, the mean income house for households was about 25,000 euros per year, not per month. Tertiary education coverage was about 13%. Upper secondary schooling, 58%, actually 59%, and preschool coverage about 73%. So as I showed you, Portugal was not performing very well, 460 points. And this led the first Ministry of Education over the PISA history to, gosh, now it's not working. Can you please press the next button? Yeah. So it started with changes in curriculum for mathematics and Portuguese for primary education. Next one, please. And then we saw a small jump in the PISA results. Just keep pressing next, and I will just talk about with the last one. So then we have a change of political color. There was a stagnation on the PISA results, but in 2003, they started these low-stake exams because they figured out that the education system needed information. Yeah, 2 minutes, I know. So in 2005, these low-stake exams for grade 9 math and Portuguese was actually converted in high-stake exams. Also, we heard already some presentations saying that students don't really take much effort when answering PISA and teams and pearls. Next, please. Just keep pressing next, and I will, yeah. So different political color change. And we saw the biggest jump in Portuguese results. So from 470 to 490 something, not Yeah. And then another policies explicitly target on PISA results. For example, improving the financial aid to lower socioeconomic status students, starting ICT education plan, starting a math national plan, a national reading plan to incentivize students to read both within schools and outside of schools. And then we actually saw 2-point decrease, non-statistical significant, but anyway. In 2012, another political color change, high-stake exams for grade 6 for mathematics and Portuguese, extra teaching hours for math, Portuguese, and science. What about history? What about geography? Well, you know, that is not assessed by PISA or teams. High-stake exams for grade 4. Keep pressing next, please. And then a teacher selection exam. So teachers that who had a Bachelor of Science, not a Bachelor, a Master of Science degree, but somehow they have to pass a general knowledge exam to be hired as teachers. So the establishment of teaching and learning targets that the students should manage and the teacher should teach, and also expansion of professional vocation offer. And then in 2006, another political change. You can see the alternation, right? So it's pink, orange, always goes like this. In 2006, in the first policy changes was to overturn all the high-stake exams for grade 4 and grade 6. The feeling was that the Portuguese curriculum was overloaded. So this new Minister of Education started the curricular flexibility already on the first year of his mandate. And then he promoted a student, 21st century student profile based on the essential learnings, streaming of mathematics and Portuguese curriculum, looking for citizenship and involvement and social skills of students and skill-based curriculum. And he started a program of low-stake exams for grades 2, 5, and 8. Before it was grades 4 and 6, and then it changed for grades 2, 5, and 8. Of course, in 2019-20 and 2020-21, we had the school closure due to the pandemic. And Portugal, like OECD and most OECD countries, saw a big decrease in his results. So, yeah. Of course, there was also societal changes. The mean income of household went to 39,000 euros, and the tertiary education almost to 50%, upper secondary school for 86%, and preschool coverage for 96.2%. So, what may explain the Portuguese evolution? Yeah, we don't really have time to go over all the big policy changes. Let me just go over this slide really fast. So, of course, it has to do with families and students, improvement in parent education, especially of mothers, financial health of families, and motivation and drive to finish secondary and tertiary education. Of course, also changes in the school's accountability and autonomy, emphasis in academic success. We used to have we still do, but now it's not that important, a ranking of schools based on high-stake exams from grade 9, and that was taken really hard by schools. Teachers training, they had to have a Master of Science before they could just teach with a Bachelor of Science. And of course, all the policies that we saw before. I'm going just to skip this. And don't worry, if you are interested, I will give you a few references in the last slide. So 5 main lessons from PISA. The first one, and I think most important, is the strategic use of assessment data. Portugal effectively utilized PISA results to inform education policies, targeting areas needing improvement and setting clear goals for curriculum enhancements and student performance. The second one is balancing accountability and holistic development. Our experience is that there is a need to strike a balance between accountability measures, like the high-stake exams, and holistic educational goals, developing students and teachers and schools. And while assessments are crucial for monitoring progress, excessive emphasis on high-stake exams can lead to curriculum overload, so that's not good, and neglect broader educational objectives. Probably, as you know, that's a criticism that a lot of researchers in the educational science point to PISA and to TIMSS, right? Just focus on three main domains. On the other hand, the evaluation of high-stake exams may lead to lower emphasis in academic success and poor results. So, yeah, there is a need to balance accountability and the student's holistic development. Of course, the other key message or lesson is the continuity and stability in policy implementation. I think the results that I showed you clearly show that consistency and stability in policy implementation are essential for sustaining educational progress. Portugal's success in the first policy phase from 2000 to 2015 stemmed mainly from continued efforts to enhance curriculum, learning outcomes and targets, and of overcoming initial setbacks. And finally, adaptability and flexibility in response to challenges. So educational systems do need to be able to adapt and to evolve, responding to changing circumstances like the COVID pandemic. So I hope I didn't took too much time off the allowed 50 minutes. Thank you so much. If you are interested, I have written these two book chapters. The last one just came out. Help me, Thomas, last month? Yeah. Last month, so yeah. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, João. Now we will move to Latvia, where Ilze Selenice, the Deputy State Secretary of the Ministry of Education and Science of the Republic of Latvia, will present how PISA data meets the policy and politics. Thank you.
Thank you. Good afternoon. I will start with this is the first slide. Yeah, so I'm happy to be here and thank you for the opportunity to share Latvia's case study. I will start with showing you our international comparative research's portfolio, which I think is pretty impressive. At least for us, is the first period of time when we can invest in all various deeper insights. So by using OECD TALIS, we are looking at teacher and school leadership, various aspects. We are also following the progress of adult learners' competencies with OECD PIAC. Of course, by using OECD and EIA data, we are looking at key skills or basic skills of students, reading, mathematics, science, and also other important skills such as digital skills and civic competence. And also by taking part in OECD, European Commission and IEA, we are also looking at the performance of education system in general. This is possible due to the European Union funds, and we are really willing to prove also to policymakers and politicians that by such investment we can gain return and therefore also in further years find funding from the state budget. So I'm trying to, sorry. Yeah, and I will have a couple of remarks where we policymakers see OECD PISA, but also other international assessment useful for our work. And the first thesis and the first point would be that we use international assessment to set and monitor education policy goals. And we do that at various levels. So here you can see a short illustration of our key national strategy document called National Development Plan of Latvia 21-27. So we are using various international assessment data to see how our country in various sectors, education, welfare, etc., is performing. And here specifically, we are, for example, using OECD PISA Index of Economic, Social, and Cultural Status, and also the data on students who are experiencing bullying. But also other data is used, and we are, by looking at the performance, making conclusions or assumptions on how we are doing. Apart from national level plan, we are also using international comparative data for our key sectoral strategy document, which is Education Development Guidelines. We have set 4 key objectives for our, again, sectoral strategy 21-27. And at system level, we have set indicators by using OECD TALIS and OECD PISA to really measure how we are reaching these objectives. So for example, with regards to objective related to teacher and academic staff's competence, we are looking at teachers who are working certain number of years data by using OECD TALIS. And when we are measuring pupil skills, then we are looking at OECD PISA, but also ICCS with civic competency. So these are just a couple of researches that we are using when we are measuring system level performance in education area. But also apart from policy strategy, in Latvia, there is another plan called Government Action Plan, which is established by the coalition government, where politicians agree on their key activities that they will implement during their period of governing. And also they have expressed wish to have OECD PISA as one of the measures of how they will see whether they have been successful with policy and politics goals. And here we have, by using the OECD trend setting framework, also have given data on the potential forecasts for years to come. So not only policy, but also politicians are referring to OECD PISA in order to monitor, let's say, system level performance. Then apart from monitoring our goals, both at policy and on political level, also there's big debate whether we can use this data to confirm or to assess our success with regards to curriculum reforms. Of course, this is like a black box. You never know what are the factors influencing curriculum reforms, but still at the same time, by seeing in the latest PISA results that we have improved in science, we made an assumption that it could be not in correlation, but definitely in relation with our science curriculum reform that we implemented from years 2008 to 2015. This reform was related to revision of learning content by setting clearer learning outcomes and moving to so-called competency-based education, by also revising methodology and also providing big investment in learning materials and teacher professional development. And this is how we assume that science curriculum reform has been successful and has contributed to our OECD PISA results. And this also gives us argument for the new nationwide curriculum reform, which started in 2018 up until 2023, which continued to revise the content in other learning areas apart from science. But also with regards to scientific literacy, there were specific goals set. So we are continuing the started reform and also using OECD PISA data as data that proves our success in the past. And also here, I would like to mention that apart from pure statistics, we are together with researchers looking into detailed descriptions about various student performance levels. And we can see that our students, although the general data in science is good, but that we are not performing so well with regards to higher cognitive skills. And therefore, for example, together with university, we are designing teacher professional development, which is focusing on student cognitive activation. In that way, really focusing on those areas that OECD PISA is highlighting as our kind of weakest sides. There are many insights that we are gaining from OECD PISA, but just a couple of them where there are clear links with education policy. And already for some time, we have seen disparities in learning achievement between rural and urban areas. So not only in PISA, but also TIMSS and PIRLS, we can see that students in Riga, which is our capital city, and also other cities are outperforming students in rural areas. And this has been a clear signal for us to look more in depth into what is happening there, and also think about potential policy options of what we can do about that. And by analyzing this data together with researchers, but also discussing with policy makers as well as stakeholders, we also have use this data to support our new teachers pay funding model. We are moving away from money follows student to program in school, and money follows pupil, as you perhaps know, because as I understand, this model is quite popular in other countries. The pay for teachers and the funding for school really is related to the number of students that are going to that school. And taking into account that in rural area there are kind of shrinking tendencies with regards to local population, it appears that schools have less funding, but perhaps like bigger amount of staff, and then at the end teachers are gaining lesser pay, and also there's assumption that if teachers are underpaid, then also not always the most competent teachers are joining schools where the pay isn't competitive. And therefore, in order to ensure that every student, independent of where he or she lives, receives high quality education, we are currently also working on the implementation of the new funding model called Program in School, where we are basically looking at funding as some kind of key services basket, that every school is receiving the same amount of money depending on the programs they are implementing. In that way, also ensuring fairer pay and fairer education for those schools which are in rural areas. And in this case, we are using international data to really argument our reform, and also to discuss this with various parties involved, schools and teachers, and also municipalities. Other insight that we have been gaining already for some time is that there's also difference, that there are let's say, signals that we need to pay attention to proportion of students with high performing results and those with low performing results. And we have seen already for some time that we are below the OECD average when it comes to high performing students. And this has given a signal to us policymakers that we need to think about policy responses and on what we will be doing with this. And here are just a couple of initiatives that we have started. The first one, we are investing in teacher professional development, specifically focusing on teacher skills with regards to differentiation strategies, and also how you can provide individualized support for talented students. Also, we are reviewing our learning and specifically assessment or exams content by looking into whether it's challenging enough for high-performing students, and in general, thinking about various supporting mechanisms for talent development and also for prevention of early school leaving for those who are underperforming. Then also, and this has been already mentioned, it's very important to cross-compare various international assessments, and we are doing that as well in order to better understand what is happening in our education system. And we have, if we compare the results of TIMSS and PISA, because these are 8th graders and TIMSS are providing data on 4th graders, we have seen that at the beginning of the school, our children, for example, in mathematics and also science, are performing comparatively better than when they reach grade 8 and 9. And this has also given us policymakers stimuli to look into the elementary and lower secondary school level, what is happening there, whether there are enough incentives for teachers to work with these students, and whether we are monitoring early student performance in order to understand what are the weak and what are the strong areas. Also, by looking at high achieving countries, we have also noticed that there's a larger share of teachers with master and doctoral education attainment levels. In Latvia, currently, you can work as a teacher if you have bachelor education. So this is another aspect that we are discussing and looking into data. And also, again, the point that we need to work with regards to teacher professional development with support for talented students and lower achieving students by helping teachers to increase their competence with regards to differentiation strategies. And here we also see the same trend that there is a difference between TIMSS and PISA students, and something is happening in these grades between grade 4 and grade 8 and 9, and we really need to pay attention to that and basically also dig deeper to understand what can we do and what are effective measures. But apart from comparing various international assessments also, and it has also been mentioned before, we are also trying to look into national assessments and national contextual data to better understand what is happening and what we can do. And also, as other countries, we are investing from the government side in secondary analysis. We are commissioning various research which provides us with various comparisons between national standardized exams data with other national contextual data. But what I would like to, and here you can see just couple of points that we are discussing with researchers, like what we would like to learn as policymakers and what could be our research questions. But what I would like to highlight is that, and someone mentioned the support for teachers, that we are also involving our researchers in coming up with recommendations with regards to methodological suggestions, recommendations, and also materials. And also we are asking researchers to look into high achieving countries. And also recently, for example, they conveyed interviews with high achieving countries to better understand what other countries might be doing, what are their policy choices, explaining their good results. And apart from that, also sharing their reforms, methodological approaches, etc., so that we, through this kind of entry data level, can move more into depths and really learn what works in other contexts in other countries. And also researchers themselves are really happy to provide also us with this methodological recommendations and support, because then it can really inform not only policy but also practice. And to finish with, we are also of course, using OECD PISA data and other data as assessment instruments that are part of our assessment system. Here you can see our assessment system in really short visualization. We have exams both at grade 9 and grade 12. These are high stakes exams. But apart from that, we are introducing, similar to what Netherlands explained a couple of hours ago, individual student monitoring for preschool grade 3 and grade 6 students in key or basic skills areas. This is a new trend. We will be starting this only next year, so that we have this early assessment of student performance. But apart from our national exams and individual student performance monitoring, of course, we see international student performance assessments as the benchmark for excellence. And only by putting these two, in our opinion, we can really gain like good overview of how our education system is performing. Thank you.
Thank you so much for this presentation. We are just in the middle of the session 1.3, which means we have 2 presentations and less than 30 minutes. Just a quick note for presenters that to all of you who had experience as a teacher, that prolonging a lesson is not a good strategy. So just please stick to the time. So I will now invite Yanis Vogrinj, professor from the University of Ljubljana, from Faculty of Education, to show us the example how to use PISA data for policy making, especially improving quality of school practices in Slovenia. The floor is yours.
Thank you and good afternoon. Together with my colleagues, we prepared this presentation with 2 parts. In the first part, I will present how the PISA data was used in Slovenia to develop the national education program for the next 10-year period. And in the second part, how pre-service teachers from our faculty are familiarized with the PISA data and where they actually see the value of this data for improving the quality of teaching practice. First, something about the national education program. We started with the preparation of this national education program in Slovenia at the beginning of the year 2023. Work was organized in 6 working groups. We didn't decide to develop these working groups according to the levels of education system, for example, for kindergarten, primary, and secondary school, but we decided that this group will be more, let's say, content-oriented. So the first working group was about social development and the role of education. The second, providing a safe and stimulating environment for the optimal development of the individual. And then, of course, we discuss about safe and stimulating environment at the level of the kindergarten, primary school, and secondary school. The third working group was for teaching, learning, monitoring progress, and assessing knowledge. Then professional and career development of education staff, quality assurance system, and the last group was for the education system. And of course, we also had the main group. I was the leader of this main group, and the main group was in charge for coordination of the whole process. When we were preparing the national education program, of course, we used different sources of data. We analyze different research reports from national research projects, from evaluation research. We also analyze the report from National Assessment of Knowledge. In Slovenia, before this year, we had National Assessment of Knowledge in the 6th and 9th grade of primary school. But from this school year, we also have the national assessment in the 3rd year of primary school. In the 3rd year, the national assessment is from Slovene language, in some parts of Slovenia, also Italian or German. Sorry, not German, Italian and Hungarian. Then we have in the 6th grade from Slovene language, mathematics, and the first foreign language. This is usually English, but in some parts of Slovenia, this is German. And then in the 9th grade, we have national assessment from Slovene language, mathematics, and the 3rd subject. The 3rd subject could be either of the compulsory subjects that students have in the 8th and 9th grade of compulsory school. And when preparing the national education program, of course, we also use results of international knowledge surveys. I will not go through all actions that we have proposed in the national education program, because this program has 302 concrete actions. But just to get impression, directions for development from the program are high quality teaching and learning. Then, for example, an improved quality assurance systems through self-evaluation, well-educated, trained, and satisfied professional and management staff, and of course, also promotion of reading literacy and reading culture. And I have to say that when we were writing this national program, we already knew the last PISA results for Slovenia from 2022. These results, at least from our perspective, were not good for Slovenia. Slovenian students achieved lower results in all the categories compared to 2018. Slovenian students still scored well in mathematics and scientific literacy, but ranked below OECD average in reading literacy. But what was actually more concern for Slovenia was that results in all 3 categories were lower than they were in 2018. So probably you understand that we put a lot of emphasis in this program for promotion of reading literacy and reading culture. Maybe just some concrete actions that we wrote in the program. Promote the development of language and other pre-reading skills in preschool. This means develop reading literacy and reading culture in the family, but also in the kindergarten environment. Then involve parents and children in family literacy programs and provide resources to implement these programs. Raise literacy and reading culture at all levels of primary and secondary education. We very much highlighted in the program that reading literacy is not only the task of a Slovenian course, but this is a task for all subjects. Then strengthen the role of writing and text production in the classroom. Updated textbooks, workbooks, and other materials that develop comprehension and writing of complete sentences and longer compositions. Our message actually was that if we have very colorful textbooks where students have to just select the correct answer or underline one word or write one word, with textbooks like this, probably we don't develop reading literacy, not even reading culture of our students. And we didn't forget for adults. Of course, we know that if the reading literacy is lower, then also the achievements in all other subjects will be lower. So that's why we proposed compensatory programs for adults. When these results, when actually people in Slovenia saw PISA results, many of them, they were really shocked. But this shocking situation was, I can say, quite a surprise for me, because the trend of declining reading literacy has been highlighted for many years in annual national assessment reports that we had in Slovenia. Here you can see example of note from the Slovenian Subject Committee for the National Survey of Students' Knowledge from 2019. Pupils continue to have great difficulty in writing linguistically correct texts independently, whether in shorter answers to open questions or in writing longer texts. Problems with reading and reading comprehension are often also the reason for lower success in solving tasks in other subjects, not only in Slovenian language. So apparently, many did not read the reports from national assessment, or they just didn't believe that the results are bad. So this is also the message, how aligned are PISA results with our results from national assessment. At least in the case of Slovenia, they are very aligned, and the message actually is the same. We believe that it is important that also teachers are familiarized with different national and also international knowledge research. Of course, that they also have to understand the empirical results, and especially they have to know how to use this data in their teaching practice. That's why we have conducted a short empirical research at our faculty. We included 85 master students enrolled in the pre-service teacher programs at the Faculty of Education in this academic year. 85 master students means approximately 80% of master students that we have at our faculty. Next year, they will be, let's say, teachers, but I have to say that many of them, they are already working in schools, because in Slovenia, we also have a big shortage of teachers. So master students at the moment, they are already teachers. Many of them, they are primary teachers, but some of them also subject teachers. Majority of them, they will work in primary schools, but they can also work in the secondary schools. So we gave them a short questionnaire to assess their familiarity with various national and international surveys of knowledge. And for example, one of the questions was, how well do you know the national and international knowledge surveys listed below? And you can see that 20% of our master students answered that they don't know what PISA is. But this is still quite a good result if we compare with the percentage of students who don't know what TIMSS is, 38%. 88% don't know what PEARLS is, 91% what TALIS is. Fortunately, all of them know what National Assessment of Knowledge in Slovenia is. Then we were also interested on their concrete knowledge. So the question was, which of the following international knowledge surveys measures the reading, maths, and science literacy of 15 years old? 44% of students answered PISA, but you can see that 38% of students don't know the answer on that question. What did the results of the 2022 International PISA survey show in the following areas of literacy compared to the previous measurement? Of course, this question was from the Slovenian context. And 66% of master students don't know what happens at the level in the field of math literacy. 68% don't know about science literacy. 51% don't know about reading literacy. So this percentage is lower if we compare it with math and science literacy, but you have to know that in Slovenian, in media in Slovenia, we had for a short period of time a lot of many articles actually about the lower results of Slovenian students in the field of reading literacy. So the knowledge of Slovenian master students about international knowledge surveys is poor. Fortunately, their attitude is not so poor. 87% of master students agree that the results of the International Knowledge Survey are an important source of information for improving the quality of the Slovenian school system. 90% of master students agree that taking the results of the International Knowledge Survey into account in the further planning of teaching lessons can contribute to improving the quality of students' knowledge. Only 46% of students believe that they have acquired enough knowledge during their studies to be able to take the findings of the International Knowledge Survey into account when planning lessons. Of course, 63%, the majority, disagree that during their study, they are familiarized themselves with the international knowledge surveys. 71% of master students disagree that the rankings of Slovenian students in the International Knowledge Survey says nothing about the quality of the Slovenian school system. And 90% of them agree that the results of the International Knowledge Survey should be taken into account when defining and ensuring quality of schoolwork. So, for the conclusion, we can see that knowledge of Slovenian students about international knowledge surveys is not good. But their attitude is better. And this is, let's say, something good for the beginning. But of course, we have a very important task at the Faculty of Education at the moment. It is, at least in my opinion, necessary that we implement some changes in teacher education programs, that we increase awareness of various international knowledge surveys, that we improve training for the effective use of research data, and of course, that we integrate knowledge surveys insights into teacher education programs. Thank you.
Thank you so much. It was good to hear that PISA assessment is the most recognized international assessment in the internationally in general, but now we will move to the presentation by Maja Katzig, the advisor in General Education Department in the Ministry of Education and Research in Estonia. And we hope to hear how Estonian success was inspired by the PISA data. The floor is yours.
Thank you. And firstly, I would like to thank you for this mention, as you mentioned that Estonia is a champion in terms of education, but I have to say that we can be maybe quite famous across the world, but in our country, education is not something very good what we talk about. So Coming back to the main topic, why we are here. So I'm very grateful for this opportunity to present Estonia's experience with utilizing the PISA study. Since 2006, when Estonia participated in the PISA survey for the first time, I have been responsible for the coordinated PISA-related activities in our ministry. Over these many years, I have seen how PISA has influenced the development and transformation of Estonian education. First, I will provide some context to help understand the role of PISA in our education system. In my country, PISA results have been both surprising and insightful for education professionals and the public alike. While we have learned that our students demonstrate quite exceptional knowledge and skills, the results have also highlighted several challenges. These include a significant gap in reading skills between boys and girls, notable disparities between Estonian and Russian medium schools, despite the equal allocation of resources, problematic aspects of the school climate also. The most recent PISA results revealed concerning decline in the average scores in science, reading, and maths, and increased influence of students' socioeconomic background on their knowledge and skills, and other emerging issues. Next, I will share our perspectives on the opportunities provided by the PISA survey. Initially, 2006, 2007, Estonia focused on the average scores, rankings, and performance levels. Our first PISA results in 2007 provided valuable insights into the effectiveness of our education system compared to other countries. For the first time, offered performance level data in reading, math, and science. Over time, we came to recognize the broader value of PISA, including the frameworks of literatures, diverse and innovative tasks, and high quality level analysis. For example, PISA's emphasis on innovative domains such as problem solving encourage us to prioritize the development of the students' problem solving skills. Additionally, the background questionnaire data inspired us to design our own well-being and school environment survey, aimed to helping schools improve teaching, learning, and the physical and mental environment for students. Since Estonia doesn't collect data on students' socioeconomic background, PISA has been invaluable in providing this critical information, enabled us to better understand and address equity-related challenges in our education. Now I repeat my colleague's presentation on one topic. So I will present concrete examples of how we have utilized PISA results. And for example, in 2014, in our first dedicated education strategy, the lifelong learning strategy 2020, we used PISA data, specifically the percentage of higher achievers and lower performers as indicators to measure our progress, or how we actually achieve our aims. In 2023, we revised our strategy, retaining performance level shares as a key indicator. However, recognizing that most students were achieving at the least basic level knowledge, we shifted our focus to reducing the proportion of students performing below level 3. The goal of this change was to take greater account of students' individuality and to focus more on developing each child's potential. As we know, PISA results are presented across various categories, such as socioeconomic background, gender, origin, and school ownership type. In Estonia, we have a unique situation as instruction is offered in both Estonian and Russian medium school. Approximately 20% or even fewer students are Russian speaking. Since 2023, we have consistently observed a performance gap between Estonian and Russian medium schools, with students in Russian language schools lagging about 1 year behind in results. To address this issue, the Estonian Parliament made a landmark decision in 2022 to transition Russian medium schools to Estonian language instruction. This shift began in the current academic year, with full implementation planned by 2030. The next example relates to our curriculum development. In Estonia, we have 2 universities specializing in initial training, teacher training, and educational research. High quality teachers training has undoubtedly played a significant role in our PISA success. However, as a small country, we face limited resources for conducting extensive educational research. In certain areas, such as curriculum development, we lack of a sufficient number of dedicated researchers. The PISA frameworks for reading, science, and math literatures have provided ideas and insights to updating our curriculum, not in terms of the content taught, but also in shaping a learning environment that supports students. For example, our latest curriculum reform in 2023 emphasized the importance of students' mental well-being and increased the focus on learning outcomes aimed at the development of higher-order thinking skills in subject curriculum. These topics have also been key areas in attention in PISA. The final example concerns testing, particularly the type of feedback we provided to schools, teachers, and students. PISA provides system-level insights through its assessments and background questionnaires, and we have adopted elements of this model in our national testing system as well. Since 1997, Estonia has conducted sample-based national tests, continuously refining their objectives and feedback. Currently, participation is voluntary, with a primary focus on supporting the teaching and learning. In the first decade of testing, we provided schools only with percentage scores for achievements. However, in the last decade or even more, we have ensured that schools receive comprehensive feedback. This includes detailed information at the class level and individual student level, enable target intervention to address specific needs. This slide showcases an excerpt from the National Science Test Report. On the left, the chart displays achievements in the 4 components of scientific literature: knowledge, inquiry, problem solving, and communication, across 5 levels. On the right, we see that data on boys and girls' anxiety towards science learning. Such detailed feedback equips teachers to tailor their approaches based on students' needs. And this is just only one piece of this comprehensive feedback. And in sum, I can say that the Estonian experience with PISA is particularly relevant, maybe, for smallest countries with limited resources and research capacity. Collaboration between universities, schools, and policymakers has been vital. PISA has not only highlighted our system's strengths and weaknesses, but also inspired learning about the different competencies, task designs, impactful factors on learning, and effective feedback schools. It is our understanding how we use the PISA, and hopefully everyone can find their own way. Thank you.
Thank you so much, and also thank you for being perfectly in time. So let's now open the Q&A session. So I would like to welcome questions to our presenters. Yes, PGB from Germany.
Yes, thank you. I have a question concerning the first presentation on Portugal and education policy. The slide that was shown about the correlation of the share of GDP spent on education and the PISA results suggests at a very first glance a strong correlation between the implementation of high stakes exams or getting rid of them and the development of PISA scores. Is that a fallacy, or what would you say about it? Oh, yeah, that's a very good question. Thank you. It really depends who you ask. So if you ask me, I do believe I'm also a teacher. And I know what is the effect of going to class and saying, well, you know, next week you will have a test, but you won't account for your final grades. I know the effect of that. And also going to class and saying, next week you will have a test and it will account for 25% of your final grade. That's what our national exams account for, the final grade of our students. So it's not really high stakes, it's kind of mid stakes. But I do believe as a teacher that they put more effort in exam that accounts for their final grades than if they put on a low stake test. And we have a lot of low stake tests also in our educational system. And there is also always some people saying that, well, you know, students don't really put any effort on low stakes, but they do it on high stakes. Anyway, again, correlation does not imply causation, but there is a temporal coincidence. And that's a factor important to accept causal effects, is that there is a temporal precedence between the cause and the effect. I don't know if you wanted a shorter answer, but that's how it goes. Thank you.
Okay, next question.
Yeah, thank you. Can I have two questions or two? Okay.
Yeah, we have Black Friday. You can have two.
That's right. I'll take advantage. Okay, the first question is, Professor Marocco, you mentioned that in your calculations, in your estimations, you take something like a PISA literacy,
yeah,
combining all three constructs.
Yeah.
Do you include in this construct also the performance of students in the novel or innovative domains of PISA? Have you attempted any kind of?
Never did that analysis, so I don't know.
Okay. And I would keep from your presentation, and I would like to stress, and I would like your reaction on that. What is that I have the feeling that the political stability and continuity that you mentioned in your speech is a factor of relatively more weight on the progress you made as a country in PISA. How do you comment on that?
My personal opinion, I fully agree with that. So in Portugal, we, from the last 24 years, we had two phases on policy according to PISA. So we have from 2000 to 2015, and it didn't really matter the political color. We had pretty much the same policies. Strengthening of the curriculum, knowledge-based curriculum, not skills. Leveraging lower socioeconomic status students, focusing on training of teachers, and getting accountability both to students and to schools. And So we have two kind of alternation in Portugal in politics. We have socialist governments, and then social democrats, and then so it always goes like that. And yes, I do believe that one of the key factors for the evolution from 2000 to 2015 was the continuity in policies. Unfortunately for us, for our education system in 2015, in 2016, actually, things changed, and there was a big cut with the previous education policies. So by that time, the Minister of Education used to say that now Portugal is aligned with OECD recommendations. And I'm not sure that was a good move and it was a smart move, because now we are indeed aligned, but we are going down like all OECD countries are going down. But that, anyway, that's my personal opinion based on data.
That was the second question, right? Okay. So we have next question.
Can I please have a question for the Latva colleague, please? So you mentioned a lot about, learning from higher performing countries when you look at, trying to improve the country performance. So I'm just wondering, so what do you consider when you learning from another high performing countries? Like how do you select? There are quite a few high performing countries. Like what do you consider when you select them? Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. So basically, we take an international comparative assessment, then we look which countries are at the top. And then it's not us policymakers, we involve researchers and we ask them to look deeper into data that is characterizing those countries' educational systems. But apart from that, as I mentioned, we are also inviting them to, for example, convey interviews with either researchers or teachers from those countries to really get an in-depth and contextual data of why they think it works in their country, so that we can learn from the evidence from other countries. Yeah, with regards to PIRLS recently, because reading skills have declined in Latvia, then our researchers have contacted various countries and really delved deeply into what are the policy decisions in various countries and what are also teaching practices that they themselves think that are successful.
Thank you. Are there any other questions? What about the online world?
The online world is very silent.
Okay.
So back to the in-person world.
Yeah, another question.
Thank you, Thomas. Kamil Würgler from the Swiss Federal Administration and PGB member. Thank you for these very interesting presentations. We've heard that dissemination is a first issue, then implementation might be the next one. And then there is probably a time gap between the measures implemented also showing some effect. I was with quite some interest seeing the timelines of your strategies that you have, mainly the first two presentations. I was asking myself sometimes, to put in the words of the Portuguese colleague, sometimes there is still smoke, but the fire is put out already, and sometimes there is a fire but no smoke yet. What are your expectations? How long does it take until some measure that has been implemented actually shows also an effect in PISA results? Well, it's not a question towards one particular person, but to all of you. So.
Well, I think it's $1 million question, and we have been asking this question also to our researchers. I think it really depends on the measure, because if you are talking about curriculum reforms, at least in Latvia, they are usually implemented gradually, which means that it takes several years when all students have gone through a particular reform. And I think curriculum reforms are specifically hard to measure, because there are various factors that are influencing. There are other policies, there are pedagogies, there are teacher initial training, etc. So that's why I mentioned it's really hard for us to talk about correlations, but yeah, we see relations, and in our case, we really, by analyzing through, let's say, expert discussions of policymakers and researchers, we really believe that our good results in science literacy in OECD PISA can be, we assume, can be related to our science curriculum reform. But of course, yeah, I think it's really $millions question. And perhaps if there are smaller measures, then you can really do like the classic measurement that you do the benchmark measurement before the intervention, and then you do the measurement afterwards. But with such big reforms as curriculum reforms, it's really hard to measure, in my opinion.
Yeah, I agree with the colleague from Latvia. I really think it depends on the policy. For Portugal, as you were seeing in my presentation, and actually the colleague from Germany also emphasized that, if you go from no high-stake assessments in the educational system or low-stake assessments, and then you move to high-stake assessments, you will see it on the next PISA cycle. Okay, so it's quite short-term response. So next PISA cycle is 3 years. However, if you go for curriculum changes, then it will take 2 to 3 PISA cycles. And this is not just data from Portugal. So I've been studying this. And there are other countries, other evidences that curriculum changes take longer time. You'll see it in 2 PISA cycles or 3. But if you go from no high stakes or no external assessments to high stakes, you'll see it on the next PISA cycle. So it really depends on the policy.
But on the other hand, at the same time, so much other things happen in the educational system that, I mean, we look at the trends, we see a lot of data in PISA assessment, but then there is that implementation gap to the reforms and how reforms can learn from PISA data. That is a huge challenge. I see it as Poland. We are now preparing the big curriculum reform as well, and paraphrasing F.A. Hayek's words, it shows us how little we really know about what we imagine we can design. Yeah, any other questions? Yes.
Thank you so much for all the presentations. I believe somebody mentioned something about teacher development programs, and it's popularly called CPD. What kind of CPD do you practice in your country? And are they mainly subject specialist CPD or just generic pedagogic practices? And can they be shared, please?
Maybe just to add to this question, because there's an online question that goes in the same direction the example of Estonia. So online, the question is also about high quality teacher training. Is it possible to mention some factors which Estonia is implemented to concentrate while extending teacher training?
So first, I would like Yanis to address the first question, and then we'll ask Maya.
Thank you. Actually, I didn't discuss about in-service training programs that you have mentioned now, but my message was actually how we should change or how our teacher education programs, actually how we should integrate the knowledge about international knowledge surveys in different courses that our students already have, and especially how to teach them to use this data to improve their teaching practice. Actually, I believe that this topic should be one of the most important topics in teacher education programs. Not only from international knowledge surveys, but also national knowledge surveys, because as I have mentioned in my presentation, we can get important information also from our reports.
Thank you. Maya?
In Estonian, we our teachers, they have to have the master degree, which means that they have to have 3 years bachelor's plus 1 year master studies. 1-year master studies. But I guess if we talk about teachers, we should be talk about the teachers of the kindergarten as well. And we have the quite I guess quite high requirements for them as well. So it's at least bachelor's degree, but in reality, actually, almost has a master degree in early childhood education as well. So it's suppose the same level.
Thank you. Okay, so I think at this time, let's move the discussion flow in the evening, and I'm closing the session 1.3. This is also the end of the day 1 of the PISA conference, and back to Somaya.